All right, guys. So we got to react to this unhinged TikTok from this woke progressive TikToker who is going to defend trans people, okay? Because allegedly trans people are under attack, okay? Which we know that that's just not true. And I want to react to this one because this one's particularly interesting. One, because this guy goes on a ridiculous meltdown here, which is always entertaining. But he's also going to argue that everybody is trans, right? Everybody is trans in some way. And he's also going to fail to engage with the actual argument, okay, what's actually happening in this country in regards to this issue of so-called trans rights, okay, which is not really about trans rights. It's really about, not allowing children to be indoctrinated, not pushing permanent sex change procedures and hormones on children. Okay, it's about not allowing biological boys to compete against biological girls in sports. That's what it's about, right? It's not about attacking or erasing trans people. But yet, again, these people, anytime they want to talk about this subject, they refuse to engage with the actual arguments and what the legislation that they're so upset about is actually doing. Right. So again, I want to react to this unhinged meltdown here because it's pure comedy. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it.
I want to talk about trans because it is driving me crazy what is going on in our culture right now. And the reason that it's driving me crazy is because these are just people. And I don't even like using the term these as if there's some separate part of people. It's just people. We're all people. Hopes, sorrows, dreams, disappointments, rejection, sadness, ambition to become something different in our lives so that we have more happiness. We're all doing the exact same fucking thing. Why are we choosing as a culture to ostracize a particular group and punish them simply for being what they are?
Well, that's not happening, right? That's not happening. Nobody's punishing trans people for being who they are, right? In fact, you could argue that the legislation that's being passed by the GOP, what conservatives are pushing for is for trans people to be who they are, right? That we actually are advocating for them to be the way that God made them, right? And to be happy with that. That's actually what we're advocating for. But apparently that's a form of hate and bigotry, according to these people, okay? So again, I mean, this is just ridiculous nonsense. But again, notice how they will never engage with the actual substance of what's happening in this country, the legislation, and what conservatives are actually really pushing for here. Okay, it's all hyperbole, it's all outrage, it's all just nonsense.
That is maddening, and it imposes a restriction on all of us. We will be a shitty society unless we can at least start with the idea that everybody has equal right to belong here as they are.
Yeah, well, again, it's not about equal rights. Trans people have equal rights. There's no rights that trans people don't have that everybody else has, okay? Again, you ask people, can you name one right that trans people don't have that everybody else has? They can't name one. What they're fighting for is special rights and privileges. The rights and privileges for certain subject matter to be taught in school to children, for children to undergo these types of procedures that are going to be, permanent, okay, that could potentially, be something they regret in the long term, right? They want biological boys compete against biological girls in sports. They want boys and girls sharing the same bathrooms. No, right? That being against those things does not make you transphobic. It is not an attack on trans rights. It's simply maintaining common sense in a society where we should organize things around sex, biological sex. But again, they never want to engage with that. They will never engage with that.
Then we can collectively start to address the actual fucking problems. Let's take a look at the world.
I love when people say that. I love when people say, oh, you're too focused on this issue right here, this small issue. We're not focused on the bigger problems. Well, here's the issue, right? When you're creating more problems, right? Like, for example, again, when you're advocating for boys to compete against girls in sports or to share the same restrooms and stuff, that is a real problem that people experience in real life, right? Right. That is an issue that is affecting young girls in school. And that's something that parents have to deal with. When you have kids being indoctrinated into school, that is a real issue that parents have to deal with. We have failing schools, and these schools, instead of teaching kids reading, writing, science, math, they want to push woke indoctrination on them. How can you tell people that that's not a real issue that they should focus on, right? If you really want to focus on the real issues, then stop pushing this nonsense on children. Stop fighting for special privileges because you have all your rights. And then, yeah, we can focus on the real issues. But if you keep creating more issues that do affect people in their lives, that do have an impact on society, then yeah, we got to address those issues. Those issues are going to get attention. Again, I love when people say that because they try to pretend that, well, this is not a real issue. This is not a big issue. It's like, no, it is a big issue. And if we don't address it now, it's only going to become a bigger issue, a much bigger issue. That's what they tell you as a way to get you to ignore it so that the issue continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where, again, you won't be able to do anything about it. That's what they want.
Word trans. Where does transgender come from? Well, it's probably an evolution of terms like transvestite and transsexual that were coined in the late 1800s by Magnus Hirschfeld, a German sexual scientist whose Institute for Sexual Science was bombed and destroyed by the, guess who? Nazis. That's right. Nazis were eliminating trans from German society in 1933. That's what we talk about when we're saying the beginning of fascism. Because look what's happening here.
Nothing, right? What's happening here? Trans people not being eliminated from society. It's not happening. Again, I would challenge this person, where is that happening? It's not happening, right? It's not happening. There's no major legislation that's been pushed to even ban people from getting the operation. I mean, if you're an adult, that is, right? So again, where is this coming from? It's made up, right? It's hyperbole. It's fake outrage because they don't want to engage with the real argument. They know if they engage with the real argument, with the real issues, they're going to lose. So therefore, they do this, right?
Now, transgender is some sort of evolution of the idea of these alternative identities and genders. But let's look at the word trans. It is short for something, right? Transitional, transpositional. There are two abstract poles of male and female. Sometimes there is a position in between. It is transpositional. Or people are trying to transition from somewhere in here to somewhere over here. So let's talk about trans if we're going to talk about trans.
This guy has been drinking too many Bud Lights, right? Maybe too much coffee in the morning. Maybe it's all an act, but yeah, this guy he's got some screws loose, right? He needs to chill out. He needs to calm down.
Human condition is nothing but trans. You begin as non-existence. You will end as non-existence. Everything in your waking life
Well, that's a godless perspective, but it's a perspective, okay?
From the moment you're born to the moment you die is a transition from non-existence to non-existence. You begin as a zygote, you become an infant, you become an adolescent, you become an adult, you become elderly, you die. Every single day of your life is a kind of transition. You are literally transitioning from one identity, infant, to another, adult. And your skin, your hair, your organs, everything about you is transitioning every day. On top of which, every single one of us is trying to use our will and our power to adapt our life and circumstance to improve our happiness. All of us are trying to transition who we are into a place we feel more comfortable and happy.
Yeah, so again, everything except engaging with the argument, right? A whole bunch of nonsense that's irrelevant. First and foremost, he's talking about the growth that you have as a human, right? Going from fetus or whatever to old person, right? Biological growth, right? Which happens naturally, okay? Again, I'm not sure exactly what type of argument he's making here. Maybe he's arguing that everybody is trans because of that, but that is natural, right? And it has nothing to do with what we're actually talking about. It has nothing to do with the subject of transgenderism, which is not something that happens naturally, right? That's something that's artificial. That's something that, we basically allow people to do, to try to transition their gender. Again, these are two different things. I'm not sure exactly why he's bringing this up because it's irrelevant to the actual argument. But again, they don't want to engage in that. And that's the whole point of this video. Go on an unhinged meltdown and never engage with the actual real issue.
So why do these people get singled out for being something that's transitional when we're all transitioning? On top of which, Joe Rogan fills his body with steroids, chemicals to alter the composition and identity of his body.
But again, he's not arguing for legislation and for other things that, again, give people special rights and privileges, try to push certain agendas on children, okay? Boys being, he's not advocating for those things. That's the difference. So yeah, Joe Rogan can put whatever drugs he wants in his body, and that's fine. I'm not saying that, a man who wants to be a woman can't put drugs in his body and to try to become a woman. But they can do that freely in their own space, in their own home. They got the freedom to do that. But again, when it comes to pushing policies where now in public, everybody else has to treat you that way, a way that, again, is not aligned with how we traditionally function as a society and how we traditionally separate ourselves out, then that becomes a problem. That becomes the issue. There's a difference, right? There's a difference. And this guy knows there's a difference. He's just acting, right? He's acting. He doesn't want to actually engage with the real issue.
And kudos for him. He admits why. It's the vanity. Totally understandable. He feels like he looks good as a semi-truck Neanderthal hybrid. So he fills himself with steroids. How is that different than somebody taking estrogen to look the way they want to look?
Again, because Joe Rogan ain't arguing to transform society into something else, right? To reorganize society. He's not arguing for that. That's the difference. I don't have a problem with people being trans. If you want to be trans, be trans. You live your life, not mine. Not something I'm into. I wouldn't do it. But live your life. My only problem is when you start advocating for stuff that changes society and how we function. That's when it becomes an issue. It's really that simple, right? There's no major legislation that is banning trans people. Zero, none, not a zip, right? But again, that's what you would think by the way these people have reacted to all this stuff. It's ridiculous. It's embarrassing.
On top of which, anyone who takes Viagra is trans. You are transitioning from an impotent man. God, nature designed you to become impotent at some point in your life. You don't like it, so you take chemicals to alter your body and become a man with sexual functions.
Again, are people that take Viagra advocating to radically transform society to the benefit of men who take Viagra, right, to give them special rights and privileges? No, right? Again, that's the difference. And also on top of that, I think there's a big difference just fundamentally between taking Viagra as a man, right, and trying to transition from a man to a woman. I think those are the two very different things.
Same for everything we do health-wise in our body. Pacemakers, stents, you name it. We're altering our body all the time to transition into something we like more. So why are we picking on these people? It makes no sense, and it is inhibiting our possibility of what we could become as a society. And I'm not talking utopia or Pollyanna. I'm simply saying there is a vision of America where the baseline is we accept each other as we are.
We do, right? We do. That's why, again, there's no legislation to ban trans people. Because we already do that, right? Again, these people, it's just so hilarious to me. All of that, a 4-minute rant, and he never addressed any of the actual policies, any of the actual issues, none of that. It was all BS, okay? It was all BS. It was all straw mans. It was a whole bunch of nonsense that had nothing to do with nothing. Made absolutely no sense whatsoever. But because they know that they can't engage with the actual issue, they're going to lose every single time. This is not something they can win on. They know that most of society don't agree with them, so this is what they resort to, right? Nonsense, right? Nonsense. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.